Hello, welcome to Dungeon Dwellers Podcast. I'm your host, Justin. Today we have another comic book review. We're reviewing Armor Wars Warzones by James Robinson and Mark Bagley. Did the first issue, which is 1.5, and then artist Marcio Takara did issues 1-5, which this trade paperback collects 6 issues. It costs normally $16.99 US, 19 Canadian. So I reviewed this yesterday, right? And despite the fact that the audio recording was only 12 minutes, it did not save properly. But despite the fact that I could listen to it in the audio recording, when I tried to import it into the video timeline for my review, it would not work. So, which sucked because it was a very good review in my opinion. So I picked this up back in December, saw the cool cover, saw that it was written by James Robinson, and thought, maybe James Robinson has gone better since the SJW comic book era started. Which, because he was his comic books before the SJW era were kind of generic and average, but generic and average would be better than SJW garbage, right? Which I was hoping this wouldn't be. And before I get into that, I'm just gonna give you the description. So I have to give you two descriptions because this is part of crossover event, Secret Wars and Warzones, which is part of two crossover events. I'll give you the description for Secret Wars. The multiverse was destroyed. The heroes of Earth 116 and Earth 1610 were powerless to save it. Earth 616 is a normal Marvel universe. 1610, I have no idea what Marvel universe that is. I'm assuming the Ultimate Universe, but I could be wrong. Now all that remains is Battle World, a massive patchwork planet composed of the fragments of worlds that no longer exist, maintained by the iron will of its god and master, Victor Von Doom, aka Doctor Doom. Each domain holding its own mysteries and enchantments, but nothing more digital than Technopolis. Technopolis is an amazing domain of science and wonder created by the visionary genius of brothers Tony and Arnold Stark. Not correct. If you read the book, it was created by Howard Stark, and they took over when their dad died. It's a real-life utopia, save for one fact: every resident must wear armor to protect them from a deadly disease. But this near paradise may be shattered forever when one of its few superheroes is murdered. As Baron Tony and his Domain's 4, a hammer-wielding Jim Rhodes, race to find out who killed Spider-Man, William Fisk tightens his iron grip on the city's underbelly. Will the Kingpin dethrone a certain genius philanthropist playboy and plunge Technopolis into chaos? As the mystery behind the plight of Technopolis unfolds, cracks in Tony's invincible armor are exposed, and the looming crisis could pit brother against brother. So I should mention this is my first comic book where I read about where I first encountered Arnold Stark, which is Tony Stark's brother, who I've never heard of him in the last mentioned in the last 60 years, which of Iron Man comic books, which I haven't read I haven't been around 60 years, but I've read I've read shit from the 60s to the modern day, and never heard of this Arnold Stark. So I'm assuming he's a new character, probably created by Dan Slott. So the comic book is basically a whodunit where Thor, aka Jim Rhodes, War Machine, who has Thor's powers, by the way, because I guess each domain has Thor who has Thor's powers and is supposed to be the guardian of that domain. which you see a bunch of different fours at the end of the book, where like you see one from like the 90s era, from the ultimate version, to like, you know, some of the more modern day versions. There's even the Beta Ray Bill, which, not a huge fan of Beta Ray Bill, but you know, it's okay. He's okay. I don't mind him so much. So yeah, it's a whodunit where like Spider-Man, aka Peter Urich, not Peter Parker, but in this universe, Spider-Man is Peter Urich, which is the nephew of the reporter Ben Urich, who in the Marvel comic books, he tried to dox Daredevil, but changed his mind, which that happened in the comic book in my Daredevil Frank Miller review. If you haven't read it, if you haven't watched my review of that, check it out. So yeah, Spider-Man found out like the secret about the Technopolis and was killed, and War Machine is trying to figure out who did it. And while that's going on, there's a power play between Iron Man and his rival business partner Arnold Stark, who's teaming up with Wilson Fisk, who, aka Kingpin, whose armor in the comic book, which I should, like the description says, everybody has special armor that they're wearing, right? And Wilson Fisk's armor is very reminiscent to the prototype armor that Iron Man made in the cave when he was, you know, kidnapped by terrorists. Which I don't know if that's if that was the original origin story for Iron Man, but I heard it was something similar. But yeah, so like, my problem with the comic book is that you think that the main character is going to be Tony Stark, and when I started reading the book and it's like it's Jim Rhodes, our War Machine, I wasn't too bothered by that. But when we got to the final issue, you find out who killed Spider-Man, and it was, spoiler alert, Tony Stark. And Tony Stark team ups with his brother and is the villain of the book. And Spider-Man's girlfriend, who's this Japanese chick, Kiri Oshira, and her business partner / friend, I forget her name, but it's basically Jim Rhodes, aka War Machine's niece, right? Who is apparently a teenage genius. So they team up, they create giant robots and beat the shit out of Tony Stark, right? And infect his armor with a virus. And and Kiri and what's her name's become the new Baron and 4 of the Technopolis domain, right? And it's revealed that, like, you know, Tony Stark's dad created the virus, which forces everybody to wear his armor. And how the virus works, within 2 seconds of not wearing a suit, your body turns into a dry up husk, which makes me wonder a couple things. One, how do people reproduce? How do people urinate and defecate? There's the fact that, are people sleeping in their armors, or do they have like vacuum sealed like apartments where they can take out their suits? Which apparently they say in the book that you can never take off your armor, right? But like people, there are people who wear different kinds of armor, right? Or that switch between different armors. Where like Arnold Stark sends this guy out on a mission to spy on Kiri's workshop where she works, and he's wearing a special suit, but because the suit is a stealth suit, it's super thin, and like he'll die in like an hour from wearing this suit, right? Because like it's too thin, and like the virus will, like, you know, seep into the suit. So like, yeah, just a bunch of shit doesn't make sense. And then like, it just feels like the main character, it feels like there's some stolen valor bullshit here, where our main characters get like in the final issue get the spotlight taken from them and are put on these two teenage girls that if they were on the cover of the books, right? Nobody would have bought the books because we bought the books because we thought it was going to be about Iron Man, right? So yeah, it's obviously there's some bait and switch, female empowerment bullshit going on here, and I just didn't really like that at all. Like I've read comic books where like they'll have like a white superhero on the cover, and then like you read it and it's really about this black superhero, right? And that didn't bother me as much because like he was like within page one he was the main character, right? So like yeah, I got tricked, but at least like they tell you right away, hey, this is the real main character. Not they didn't do some last minute bullshit where they're like, in the final issue of this story, the real heroes are these two side characters that nobody gave a fuck about. So I really don't like getting tricked. And the fucking thing about this book is I was enjoying it until the stupid reveal, right, where it turns out Iron Man's the villain. And he actually had like a good excuse, but like still, I hate this bullshit. I'm giving it. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 10, but I'm on my last review. But fuck it, dude. 3 out of 10. Fuck this. Fuck this comic book. It's garbage. And I got it at the dollar store at like last December for $3. Not fucking worth it even for $3. This is terrible. Don't buy this comic book. And our next comic book review will be Transformers Primal Scream. Check that out, and check out our playlists for more comic book reviews. We got everything organized. So if you want DC comic reviews, they're in the DC Comics playlist. If you want Marvel comic reviews, all the Marvel comic reviews are on the same playlist. And if you're like not a fan of either DC and Marvel comics, I have a playlist titled non-DC and Marvel comic books where I have comic book reviews from like, Dynamite, Image, Valiant, Boom, other companies whose names I forget, like Dark Horse and Devil's Due Publishing and Titan Comics. God, that comic book, that Dark Souls comic book and Bloodborne comic book were so bad. All right, guys, check that stuff out later.